ਜਸ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਹੋਸਟ ਆਸ਼ਮਿਤਾ। ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਨਿੱਘਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕੁਝ ਐਕਸਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟਸ ਅਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਵੱਡੀ ਖਬਰਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ, ਉਮੀਦ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੀ ਨਾਰਥ ਈਸਟ the states ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੋ, I hope you're staying cool. We are undergoing a historic heat wave, ਇੱਕ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਿਕ heat wave ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਨਾਰਥ ਈਸਟ ਦੀ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰੀ। ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਬਟ ਵੱਡੀ ਖਬਰ ਇਸ ਹਫਤੇ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਜੀਓਪੋਲੀਟੀਕਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, is taking place on the other side of the world. ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਲਈ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮੈਟਿਕ ਏਰੀਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਹੁਣ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਕੰਟਰੋਲਡ ਖਤਰਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਹੁਣ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਵੱਧ ਰਿਹਾ, ਹੋਰ ਬੁਲੰਦ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ। I'm talking about North Korea. In fact, if you look at the headlines, ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦੀ ਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈਗੀ that President Vladimir Putin, ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ, ਇੱਕ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ। ਇਸ ਵਿਜ਼ਿਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹਿਸਟੋਰਿਕ, ਬਹੁਤ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਟ, ਸਿਗਨੀਫਿਕੈਂਟ ਪੈਕਟ ਸਾਈਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਲੀਡਰ ਕਿਮ ਜੋਂਗ ਉਨ ਅਤੇ ਵਲਾਡੀਮੀਰ ਪੁਟਿਨ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ। ਐਂਡ ਉਸ ਪੈਕਟ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਕਰਕਸ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਮਿਊਚੁਅਲ ਏਡ ਹੋਏਗੀ, ਮਿਊਚੁਅਲ ਹੈਲਪ ਹੋਏਗੀ ਅਗਰ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਬਾਹਰਲੀ ਅਗਰੈਸ਼ਨ ਫੇਸ ਕਰਨੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈ। ਆਈ ਮੀਨ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਸ਼ਬਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਅਗਰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਖਤਰਾ ਇਨ ਦੋ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰਲੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਤੋਂ, ਕੰਟਰੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਹੈਲਪ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਕਿਸਮ ਦੀ ਅਲਾਇੰਸ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਨੇਟੋ ਨੂੰ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਤਗੜੀ ਅਲਾਇੰਸ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ। ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਵਲਾਡੀਮੀਰ ਪੁਟਿਨ ਆਪ ਦੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਅਲਾਇੰਸ ਬਣਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਇਫ ਯੂ ਲੁੱਕ ਐਟ ਮੋਰ ਹੈਡਲਾਈਨਸ, ਇਹ ਜੋ ਮਿਊਚੁਅਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਾਹਿਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਈਵਨ ਦੋ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਡੀਟੇਲਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਆਈਆਂ, ਬਟ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ, ਆਈ ਮੀਨ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਇਨ ਦੋ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇੰਨਾ ਤਗੜਾ ਕੋਲਡ ਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ। ਆਈ ਮੀਨ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਡੈਕੇਡਸ ਹੋ ਚੱਲੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਅਤੇ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਈਵਨ ਦੋ ਫਰੈਂਡਲੀ ਟਰਮਸ 'ਤੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਇੰਨੀ ਗਹਿਰਾਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਬਲਿਕਲੀ officially ਨਹੀਂ ਖੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। In fact, if you look at some of the other headlines in this, the Cold War relationship ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਅੱਗੇ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਇਹ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਐਂਡ ਕੀ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਇਹ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਲਈ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਜੋ ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੀ ਮਿਲੀਟਰੀ ਕੋਆਪਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗੀ, ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਈਰਾਨ, ਚਾਈਨਾ ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਨੀ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਨ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਮਨ ਐਨਮੀ ਹੈਗਾ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ, ਸਪੈਸ਼ਲੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਹੁਣ 2 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਜੰਗ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਐਕਸਪਰਟਸ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜੋ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਮੁਲਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਖਤਰਾ ਪਹੁੰਚਾ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਵੀ, ਮਤਲਬ long after the war is over. This is a long term thing that we're looking at here. And ਜਿਸ ਤੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਜਿਸ ਗਹਿਰਾਈ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਹੁਣ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੌਂਗ ਟਰਮ ਡੇਂਜਰ ਹੈਗਾ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਸਮ ਆਫ ਦ ਥਿੰਗਸ ਦੈਟ ਵੀ ਆਰ ਲਰਨਿੰਗ ਕਿ ਇੰਟੈਲੀਜੈਂਸ ਸ਼ੇਅਰਿੰਗ ਹੋਏਗੀ, ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਵੈਪਨਸ ਦਾ ਬੈਕ ਐਂਡ ਫੋਰਥ ਐਕਸਚੇਂਜ ਤਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਯੂਕਰੇਨ ਵਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਰਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਵੈਪਨਸ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਈਰਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸੀ। ਐਂਡ once again ਇਸ meeting ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, if you look at more headlines, you'll see that North Korea ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਖੁੱਲ੍ਹੇ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ full support declare ਕੀਤੀ, but the more important thing is ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਰਸ਼ੀਆ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ support declare ਕੀਤੀ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਦਾਇਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਮਿਸਿੰਗ ਪੀਸਿਸ ਦੇ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਿਊਕਲੀਅਰ ਡਿਵੈਲਪਮੈਂਟ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਰਾਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਨਿਊਕਲੀਅਰ ਕੈਪੇਬਲ ਸਟੇਟ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਆਪਣੇ ਟੌਪ ਐਡਵਰਸਰੀ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਟਾਰਗੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਨ। Closing out some of these headlines, you know, I want to remind people कि ਇਹ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ। ਕਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਟਾਈਮ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਵਲਾਡੀਮੀਰ ਪੁਟਿਨ ਨੇ ਨਾਰਥ ਕੋਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਨਿਊਕਲੀਅਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੌਸਟਿਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਬ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰੁਕਾਵਟ ਪਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ। ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਉਹ ਦਿਨ ਤਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਗਏ ਗੁਜ਼ਰੇ ਹਨ। ਐਂਡ ਇਸ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਲਾਡੀਮੀਰ ਪੁਟਿਨ ਦੀ ਸਟੇਟਮੈਂਟ ਸੁਣਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਬਿਫੋਰ ਵੀ ਕਲੋਜ਼ ਆਊਟ ਦਿਸ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ। Pyongyang has the right to take reasonable measures to strengthen its defense, its own defense capability, ensure national security, and protect its sovereignty. ਇਹ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਵਲਾਡੀਮੀਰ ਪੁਟਿਨ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕਹੇ ਗਏ ਇਸ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਹਿਸਟੋਰਿਕ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਵਨਸ ਅਗੇਨ ਵੈਸਟਰਨ ਪਾਵਰਸ ਲਈ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਡੇਂਜਰਸ ਰਿਲੇਸ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਡਿਵੈਲਪ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਸ ਸਟੋਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਫੋਲੋ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ, ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਅਪਡੇਟਸ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਬਟ ਆਈ ਕਾਈਂਡ ਆਫ ਵਾਂਟ ਟੂ ਟੇਕ ਯੂ ਇਨ ਅ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਸ਼ਨ। ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਬਾਕੀ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਡੋਮੈਸਟਿਕ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੁਝ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਵੈਰੀ ਐਕਸਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ। ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼, ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਿਵਲ ਰਾਈਟਸ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੌਣ ਬੁਲੰਦ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਕੁਝ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ, ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਹਨ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਿਵਲ ਰਾਈਟਸ ਦੇ ਏਰੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਅਤੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਟਰੈਂਥਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਖੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹਨ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition, ਰੀਸੈਂਟਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition ਨੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਵੈਲਕਮ ਕੀਤੀ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਿਵ ਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਐਂਡ ਇਸ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਦ ਨਿਊ ਐਗਜ਼ੈਕਟਿਵ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ of Sikh coalition ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਬਾਰੇ ਸਿੱਖਦੇ ਹਨ। ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਜੋ ਕੁਝ ਕਰੰਟ ਇਨੀਸ਼ੀਏਟਿਵ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition ਵੱਲੋਂ ਰਚੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਹੈ, ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਐਕਸਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਗੈਸਟ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਕੁਝ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟਸ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਕਸਰ ਇਸ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਬਿਕੋਜ਼ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸੇਵਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਲਈ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ ਰੋਲ ਨਿਭਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਸਿਵਿਕ ਇੰਗੇਜਮੈਂਟ, ਸਿਵਲ ਰਾਈਟਸ, ਸਿੱਖ ਆਈਡੈਂਟੀਟੀ ਅਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰੈਸ, ਜਦੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਚੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇੱਕ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਟੌਪ ਆਫ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਇਨ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅੱਗੇ ਖੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਰੋਲ ਨਿਭਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਭਾਵੇਂ ਵਾਸ਼ਿੰਗਟਨ DC ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਏ, ਲੋਕਲ ਸਟੇਟ ਹਾਊਸਿਸ, ਲੋਕਲ ਪੋਲੀਟਿਕਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਏ, ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਗਤ ਦੇ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਮਸਲੇ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੇ ਹਾਦਸੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ, ਜਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਾਂਗੀ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਅਤੇ ਗਾਈਡੈਂਸ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਅੱਗੇ ਖੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਸੇਵਾ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ, ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਇਨਫੋਰਮ ਅਤੇ ਐਜੂਕੇਟ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਡੀ ਅਨਾਊਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ। ਇਨਫੈਕਟ the new executive director of Sikh coalition, Harman Singh, ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਹਰਮਨ, congratulations, welcome to the program. ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ. Thank you so much, Ashmita. Pleasure to be here.
So good to have you, Harman. You know, it's been such a long time. I know we were just talking. Last time you were on the program was almost over a year ago, actually. You know, we were talking about some really important work the coalition was doing last year when it came to surveys. But today, addition to some initiatives, we are also announcing your new appointment as the Executive Director. And once again, congratulations are in order. The Sikh Coalition organization has always been a leader in promoting so many important facets of civic society and engagement amongst the Sikh American community. And to have you at the helm with your track record, not just in these important sectors, but in the organization itself, could not be better news. I'm so excited to share a little bit about the things you're going to focus on and some initiatives the coalition is working on currently. But before we get to all of that, can you tell us a little bit about, you know, people are very familiar depending on what age group, what part of the country they live in, what issues they've been affected by. They are familiar with Sikh Coalition's work. But I'd love to hear what exactly your role as Executive Director entails. And before you got to ED, you had a long tenure at the organization. How did you start out? How did you kind of progress through the ranks? Tell us a little bit about your journey to ED at Sikh Coalition.
Yeah, you know, I joined the Sikh Coalition 3 years ago to lead our organization's education work. And so my background prior to joining the Sikh Coalition was really in higher education. I spent time working at high schools as well. And so that's where my work originated here at the Sikh Coalition, was managing our team's education portfolio. Over the past 3 years, I also then transitioned to also managing our state and federal policy portfolio, given there was so much overlap between what we were doing on the education side of our work and the advocacy side. Because obviously, what a lot of folks know the Sikh Coalition for over the past 20 years has been our legal work, our policy work to ensure safe classrooms for our students, to prevent hate and discrimination. And so really I started on the education side, but over the past 3 years have moved it more into the policy realm of what we do. And now very excited to lead the organization as the new executive director. And really, you know, as the executive director, my role entails the day-to-day operations of our team, managing all 5 of our different program areas: legal, policy, education, community development, and communications. Then also just helping to set the strategic vision of where we go next with the Sikh Coalition, because we are now 20 years plus post the creation of the Sikh Coalition, when it was an all-volunteer organization, to now we have roughly 25 full-time staff on our team. And so growing it well beyond where we are today is kind of the next step here for me and for the team.
I mean, once again, ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫਿਰ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਦੁਹਰਾਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਇਹ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਕਾਫੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਸਥਾਵਾਂ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ 9/11 ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੈਂਬਰਸ, ਉਹ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਸਰੂਪ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਹੇਟ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਮਸ ਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਇਨਕਰੀਸ ਵੇਖਿਆ, ਟਾਰਗੇਟਿੰਗ ਵੇਖੀ, you know, and so much of it was connected to misinformation, like your specific area dictates a lack of education and awareness on who we are. You know, while on one hand we are so proud of the work that Sikh Coalition, as well as other organizations, have done to increase the level of awareness around Sikh identity and the issues that matter to our community, there is certainly so much more work still to be done. I mean, hate crimes, school bullying, these kind of things are issues. ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੰਗਤ, you know, ਕੁਝ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗੀ, ਉਹ issues ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੈ. I guess I want to go a little farther back, right? How did you, on a personal level, get involved with advocacy, and particularly when it comes to the education area, advocacy within education? How did you end up, you know, pursuing this particular track?
Yeah, I mean, Ashmita, I kind of view myself really just as a product of my Sangat. And so I grew up in Michigan, was born and raised here. And I was very lucky to have a Sangat that showed me the value of getting involved and also showed me the path forward. And really, I saw that as a path of building our Sangat internally and then also engaging externally outside of the Sikh community. And so, like a lot of Sikh youth post 9/11, I faced a lot of challenges, right? My brother and I were the only Sikhs in our school. Really grew up in an area where there were no other Sikhs in our city. And obviously, you know, as a Sikh in middle school who wore a partka, there was a lot of challenges that I faced. And particularly, I remember walking into school on September 12th and immediately being called a terrorist. Oh my God. And so that moment really stuck with me, and it really shaped the future of both my personal life my academic journey and also my professional journey. And I kind of view that as one of the turning points that has led me to where I am today of being here at the Sikh Coalition. And so, I went on after high school to study history as an undergraduate student, went on to study educational psychology in grad school. And then really, as I mentioned, had a long career working in higher education, working directly with students as an academic advisor, as a program coordinator, spent some time at the high school setting as well. And really my first interaction with the Sikh Coalition one-on-one that kind of led me towards the path of going down this road was when our community development team was doing work here locally with the Sangat. And so they put out a call looking for Sikhs in Michigan to go through a Sikh awareness presenters course so that they could go out and engage with the community. I went through that course, met a number of the folks on the team. And then locally here in Michigan during the farmers' protest movement, was engaged through a Seva organization that myself and a number of other Sikhs here in Michigan started, where we were reaching out to elected officials and legislators to advocate for the community. And so I met folks on the policy team, started to engage with them. And when the opportunity opened up for me to kind of make a career transition from higher ed into the civil rights space with the Sikh Coalition, it all kind of made sense and it all fit because of the work that I was already doing with folks on the team. And so at heart, I kind of view myself as someone who comes from a grassroots activism background. That's really where I started. And that's really, again, a function of the Sangat we're a part of. And the other thing I would say that really shaped my desire to work in civil rights and to work in this space on behalf of the community is also in recognition of the month that we're in, which is June. I remember as a young child, again, growing up here in the United States, looking for my sense of identity and trying to understand who I am, where I come from, because I was feeling like I didn't belong in the place I was. And so that research led me to 1984, to talking to family, community members, doing research online. And I think the stories of 1984 propelled me to want to advocate for our community, and also gave me the strength to say, hey, I may be facing challenges right now as a youth, but I know where my ancestors come from. I know where my community comes from, right. And their strength and their resilience to be where we are today is what drove me. And so those are kind of the turning points that led me to a career in civil rights.
That's so amazing. I'm so glad, Harman, that you've tied it back to not just the contemporary experiences of folks like you, the generations that are born and brought up in the United States, but the recognition that those generations are following in the footsteps of our ancestors, ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਸ਼ਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਲਈ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਪੰਥ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਸਦਾ ਹੈ, ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਵਸਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕੀ ਮਾਇਨੇ ਰੱਖਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹਲੇ ਵੀ ਗਾਈਡ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ. I'm so glad you tied it in. Coming back to the organization, in terms of advocacy, once again, 20 years is a long time. We're talking 20 plus years, in fact, at this point. And the organization has done so much, especially in the last few years. It's been such a volatile, political, social environment, between the pandemic, the census, 2 presidential elections. We have the 3rd one coming up in just a few short months. Can you tell us a little bit about where you see your priorities falling now that you are ED, going into the next few years, going into this new leadership role? Where do you see yourself focusing the attention and the power of not just the community, but Sikh Coalition's advocacy resources as part of Executive Director?
Yeah, no, I think you hit on a very important point, which is the geopolitical issues, the political issues, the internal development of the Sikh community. All of that kind of reshapes what their priorities are for each generation and each new iteration of the Sikh Coalition, right? Because post 9/11, the days that followed, there were unique challenges that the community faced. And many of those challenges we have overcome. We've kind of built ourselves into a place where we may not need to be doing the same things that we did in 2001, and yet there are new challenges that present themselves at each of these moments. And so absolutely, we're in an election year. Election years tend to bring a lot of divisive political rhetoric. That rhetoric often leads to violence and hate and discrimination against communities like ours. There's geopolitical conflicts. Those also come back and also impact our community, right, and many other communities here in the United States. And then we also have new challenges that, certainly for a long time, we've known as a community of issues like transnational oppression. We've known that our community has been targeted really since we've been here in the country. But those issues have come to a new light over the past year. And that also reshapes some of the priorities that we have as an organization to address some of these newer challenges that present themselves. And so what I would say is, right, our priorities are aligned with the needs of the Sanghat. That's ultimately what informs our work, is where the Sanghat needs the support. And so our legal team has more and more legal intakes year over year. So the intakes are not slowing down, and the intakes are related to hate crimes, school bullying, workplace discrimination. So year over year, more and more Sikhs are reporting that they're facing these challenges. Year over year, our policy team is addressing newer pressing issues like transnational oppression. And so our federal portfolio now includes a brand new stream of work that wasn't necessarily a part of this work in 2001 when the Sikh Coalition began. Our community development team has newer challenges to work with Gurdwaras, right? Gurdwara security has taken on new forms after Oak Creek to where we are today, and some of the newer challenges that exist.
Right.
And so all of these new things, I think, bring a new energy and a new requirement for us to rethink how we approach all of these challenges. And what I would say is that our Sanghat is now past the point of wanting a seat at the table. We don't want to prove anymore that we are Americans. We don't want to feel like we have to justify our right to dignity and respect. We expect a seat at the table. Now the question is, are our asks being fulfilled? And so that's the next chapter, I think, of the Sikh Coalition, is no longer saying we want to be in these meetings. It's saying we are obviously going to be in these meetings. The question is, what results will be delivered on behalf of the Sikh community? And I think that's the next challenge for our generation.
I love that. I love that because, this is a two-way street, right? As much as organizations like the Sikh Coalition need to open those doors for the community, once we have those seats at the table, so to speak, it's up to the community what we do with that opportunity. So putting it back on the Sangha, the viewers that are listening to you today, because it's up to them as well to act based on these resources, to use these resources and create better lives for their children, for their social circle, for their Sikh community going forward. Specifically with the election season coming up, I mean, it goes without saying, right, that we want everyone who can, and most people can, participate, engage, get involved with the political process in this country. Even if you can't vote, you can be aware, you can volunteer, you can activate other folks, right? But the point is, it's so important to get involved. So what would you say with this election season coming up, what should be some priorities for civic engagement, and not just that the Sikh Coalition is going to focus on, but that you expect the Sanghat to also engage in with the resources that you're putting out there for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with one project that is going to be involved with actually engaging with the Sanghat and kind of moving this next step forward, which is our Get Out the Vote Fellowship program. And so what we're doing is engaging with youth Sanghat members from across the country, primarily in key swing states where we know the Sikh vote may be able to make a difference in the outcomes, both at the federal but also the state and local level, and working with youth fellows to actually go to Gurdwaras, engage with Sanghat members, ensure that they have information about how they can vote, if they can vote, how they can get registered to vote, what the deadlines are, how early voting works, all of the really important questions that are very state specific, right? Because this is not necessarily just a federal issue. There are state regulations or requirements, and what we want to do is mobilize our youth, our Sanghat members at the local level to engage with their communities, and we'll provide them the frameworks to do that. And so we're very excited to be launching that fellowship program this summer into the fall. And another thing that we actually are really excited to kind of announce is that we're working with the Asian and Pacific Islander American Vote Organization and also Asian Americans Advancing Justice, where we're going to have a Punjabi language assistance voter hotline. So anyone who has questions about voting, where they want to ask these questions in Punjabi and be able to get responses from folks who know the work, we'll be able to dial this number, get the responses in Punjabi so that they have all the information they need to go out and actually engage in the civic process. The thing I kind of want to hit home here is, right there, we're in a unique election year where I think many of us expect that there may not be as much voter excitement as there have been in previous years for especially a presidential election.
Yeah.
The big thing that we're trying to stress to folks is this is not just about who's at the top of the ticket. We're obviously a nonpartisan organization. We don't do this work on behalf of any candidate or political party.
Right.
But Sikhs voting has a direct impact on so many of the issues that impact our community. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at school boards, if you're looking at mayors, judges, sheriffs, all of these things have direct impacts on our community. And so getting engaged, voting, making the Sikh community's voice heard has a direct impact on our ability as a Sangha to move to the next phase of where we want to go. And so it is really important that we all go out and vote this year, and really make sure that the Sikh voting bloc is recognized as a bloc that individuals need to pay attention to, because that does drive so much of the political influence that we have.
Once again, so well said. All politics is local, and it's the local politics that we need to be really engaged in and paying attention to, so there can be a Sikh voting bloc, and electeds are catering to our needs, like they do to all these other folks who do have that power. There's a really exciting initiative that is currently ongoing that the coalition has launched, and it has something to do not just with Sikh identity, but almost a deeper dive for our own community's benefit. So I want to talk about this initiative as well. ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਦੀ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਸਿਰਫ ਡੇ ਟੂ ਡੇ ਮਸਲਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਪਾਵਰ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਬਟ ਜੋ ਵੱਡਾ ਏਜੰਡਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਸਿਵਲ ਰਾਈਟਸ, ਸਿਵਿਕ ਐਕਸ਼ਨ, ਸਿਵਿਕ ਲਿਬਰਟੀਜ਼ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਮਾਹਿਰਤਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਡਿਸਪਲੇ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੋalition ਦੇ ਨਿਊਲੀ ਅਪੋਇੰਟਡ ਐਗਜ਼ੀਕਿਊਟਿਵ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟਰ ਹਰਮਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ। ਹਰਮਨ, welcome back once again. Congratulations, not just on the new appointment, but the 20 plus years of legacy that you are now taking guard of, taking leadership of. Sikh Coalition has been a premier civil rights organization for the Sikh community for the last 20 years. And I think one of my favorite things that you said in the last segment, that yes, the challenges may be different for our community from post 9/11 to today, but that doesn't mean there aren't challenges. And the new challenges are being addressed through new means, new initiatives. And when we talk about the United States, the oldest phrase, it's a melting pot, it's a country of immigrants. There's so many diverse communities that have found a new home in this country. And if you drill down, really, even the Sikh community, we always like to say, is a minority within a minority group, right? But that sometimes is lost on folks that are ignorant about who we are. And so I'm really excited to talk a little bit about your latest initiative. In fact, it's a landmark report called, based on the experiences of Sikh students nationwide, which is of course your area of expertise, education and advocacy. The report is titled, "Where Are You Really From?" And once again, this is something that drills down into our identity, right? But I would love for you to tell us a little bit about not just the scope of the report, but what prompted the Sikh Coalition to work on this particular initiative?
Yeah, I think, Ashmita, anyone who engages with our Sangha has children, nephews, nieces, is involved with Khalsa school or Punjabi school, knows that our Sikh youth experience bullying, right? That is not new information to us. We all know that these are challenges that occur. What we also know is that these anecdotes alone don't necessarily drive policy, and we need data to support what we all know to be true within the community. And so really the impetus for us conducting this study over the past year is that our last report was conducted in 2014, and that report was called Go Home Terrorist. That report found that 67% of Sikh youth who were Bhatkas or the Stars were being bullied in our schools. And that data is what directly impacted the inclusion of Sikhi in 19 states plus Washington, D.C., because the case we make to schools and to administrators is that there is a real problem of bullying that is impacting our students. And one of the best ways to reduce that bullying is through inclusive education. And so much of our policy work is driven by the data about our students. What we also know is that from 2014 to 2024, a lot has changed in this country. As you mentioned, COVID, online learning, many additional challenges geopolitically, politically. There's a lot that has changed, and there's a lot of things that have changed with students using social media, et cetera. And so we needed a new data set that answered not just the old questions, but also posed new questions that we didn't ask in 2014. So things that like microaggressions, right? Our students noticing that in their day-to-day interactions, perhaps they're not being pushed or punched or kicked, but they're being asked questions that would indicate there are real problems and that they perhaps are going down the road of bullying. So things like asking, where are you really from, right? That's
Yeah.
the reason we named the report this is one of the common things that students told us they hear day to day. And that can have a real impact, right? Because for students who grew up here in the United States like me, being asked where are you really from is really a difficult question because
Yeah.
I'm from here. Where else would I be
Yeah.
from, right?
Yeah.
I maybe only visited India a few times in my life, and maybe I don't even resonate with the government of India, and so I don't know if I belong there either. And so
Yeah.
being asked where are you really from is a really difficult question, but it's one that our students get asked time and time again. And so what we did over the past year is actually survey more than 2,000 Sikh students ages 9 to 18. These student surveys came from more than 30 states, and this was done directly through engagement with local gurdwaras and Khalsa schools. So we worked directly with the Sanghats and said, hey, this is the reason we need to know more about our Sikh students' experiences. And then based off that data, we just published a report, Vaisakhi of this year, and that report was conducted in partnership with Dr. Kavita Atwal, a researcher from California, who's a school psychologist. And really the purpose of this report is we now have really good data, a good data set to provide answers to our Sikh students' experiences that we can then use to both drive policy. But importantly, I also want to mention this report has recommendations for Sikh parents and Sikh students about what they can do if they are experiencing bullying themselves.
Yeah. I mean, once again, I have to reiterate for the benefit of the viewers, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਡੇਟਾ ਏਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਚੇਂਜ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ at these really high stakes meetings, whether it's in Washington DC, at state houses, at school board meetings, they want to know ਕਿ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਝਾਵ ਅੱਗੇ ਰੱਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੀ data hega. What information are you using to propose these changes, right? Especially when it comes to education, that is such a sensitive issue for parents of all backgrounds in this country. When you're proposing changes in the educational system or a curriculum, people want to know why. If you don't have solid data to back that up, you can't get anything done. So this is so important. I'm so glad once again कि तुसी एहो जे surveys, एहो जे data दे बलबूते उत्ते एह changes propose कर रहे हो. And what better way to make a positive impact in students' experience, Sikh students' experiences, than to ask them, what is your experience today? So we can potentially make it better, right? So, following up on that, what were some of the core or most interesting findings that you came across on this report?
Yeah, I'll hit on three of the findings. We have a number of other ones, but these are kind of the three that always stick out to me. The first is that 78% of Sikh students report experiencing behavior that qualifies as bullying. Wow. So that's a staggering number. Again, 78% of Sikh students report behavior that qualifies as bullying, but only 49% said they were bullied. And so there's an interesting disconnect there, right? In terms of they're experiencing bullying behaviors, but they're not recognizing it as bullying. And so there's a lot of potential additional research we need to do as to why that is, but some of this may be the resiliency of our Sikh students, right? We come from a very resilient community background, and I think, many of our Sanghats, parents, forefathers kind of instilled a confidence in us, and so there may be some actual protective factors that Sikh students are very confident even amidst the bullying. Right. Some of it may also be a lack of education in terms of Sikh students recognizing that it's not okay for people to actually do the things that they're doing, and so there may be a little bit more that we need to understand. So that was one really interesting piece of it. The second really big piece of data that I think is probably one of the more alarming pieces of data is that 11% of Sikh students report being bullied by an adult in the school. What? And so, so much of what we've done over the past 10, 20 years has been ensuring that students are not bullying other students. And we believe that's obviously a very important thing. It's doubly disturbing if an adult is bullying a Sikh student or any student, right? Because there's a inherent responsibility as an adult in a school that you have to protect the students. And so that then leads to us wanting to do more work in terms of training administrators, educators, and address some of the root causes, because obviously if an adult is modeling bullying behavior, it is going to then seep down into students also behaving as bullies. And then the third big thing that I think is really important to recognize is that Sikh students are less safe in less inclusive schools. And what we mean by that is schools that do not teach about Sikhi are less safe for Sikh students. And so again, this is a really important piece of data for us, because when we're going to board meetings or departments of education and saying, you need to teach about the Sikh community and social studies, ways. This is now a piece of data that we can use to identify there is a correlation between less safe schools and less inclusion of Sikh. So those are three really big ones. And then the final thing I'll say on this is another step that we took in 2024 that we did not take in our 2014 report is actually understand the impact bullying has on Sikh students. And so our data actually shows that Sikh students who are bullied face poor mental health outcomes.
Of course.
Right? They're more likely to relate higher on scores that measure a depressed mood. And so, you know, mental health is obviously a really important topic. I think more and more members of our community are understanding that we need to address this.
Right.
But there's a direct line between students being bullied and students having lower mental health outcomes, which only underscores the need for us to address this as a community.
I mean, this is such a, it's groundbreaking, right? I think certainly the adult element of this, that there is bullying that exists from the adults that are supposed to be the caretakers in an educational setting against these children, however big or small that number is, the fact that number is there is so disturbing. I'm so glad that this has come to light. You mentioned a little bit about some educational trainings, खास करके जिथे तक teachers दी गल आंदी है, which then, you know, seeps down into the student body as well. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how these findings from this report, where are you really from, are going to impact some of the actions, the steps that you take to advance some of the policy work?
Yeah, you know, so in the month of May, right after launching this report, staff from our organization visited 16 Gurudwaras nationwide to first share this report directly with their local Sanghats. So everywhere from Michigan, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, California, Georgia, we went to our local Gurudwaras and said, hey, here are the findings, because we want to engage our local Sanghats in actually going forward and addressing these challenges. Again, the Sanghat is at the root of all of this, right? As an organization, we cannot go forward on actually implementing any of these recommendations without engagement from the community. As you said, local politics is the most important, particularly in education. Local politics is where it begins. Certainly there's conversations we have with Board of Education and others at the federal level, but they do not have the ability to make change as much as local departments of education and state boards of education have to actually implement the changes we recommend. And so for us, the local engagement is so much at the heart of what we are going to be doing with these findings. And so we've already started some of that, right? In the month of May in New York, we trained 150 teachers in Queens. We worked with the New York Department of Education to really ensure that a report was provided to all of the teachers in New York City public schools. And then we also ensured that their New York City Departments of Education resources are translated into Punjabi so that if parents in Queens, in New York are facing bullying, they're able to understand what the reporting process is in language accessible ways, because that remains true, you know, over 20 plus years. Language access is such an important piece of parents feeling empowered to actually address the challenges of their students. So we've already started some of that. We've done briefings for the Department of Justice, for congressional offices, for state legislators across the country. But really our work is going to be heavily focused on the fall and back to school season. And that's where we are going to call upon Sanghats across the country to join us when we are in back to school mode, to really engage their local schools, their local school districts with the recommendations we have. We have templates, we have everything kind of ready to go. All you have to do is hit send, but we really want to ensure that local Sanghat members are engaged in that process going into the fall.
Once again, this is so important, and you know, it's kind of baffling to me that the Sikh American history traces back to over 100 years. It features extremely notable individuals like Dalip Singh Sond, you know, that have shaped not just the Sikh community or the Asian American community's trajectory in this country, but the political makeup of this country as a whole. And yet often we don't see any mention, you know, of the Sikh contribution to American history. You know, even a small piece on that could go such a long way to change non-Sikh students and teachers' perspectives about who we are. And like you said, this is no longer a question of, do we belong here, but a question of folks realizing we've been here already. We've been part of the fabric, right? And we deserve the same rights as any other American does, especially our children. This is a fantastic work, a fantastic piece of reporting. Where are you really from? A report that takes students' experiences, I believe 9 to 18 you said, and puts it in the form of data that is actionable, whether at a federal policy level, a local state policy level, but more importantly at the educational curriculum and policy level. I'm so glad once again that Sikh Coalition is doing this. Before we wrap up, any other initiatives that are on the horizon? And of course, Harman, a call to action for our viewers, right? There's so many things that are so important right now that folks can get involved in, they can be aware and engaged with. I'd love to get some closing comments on that from you as well.
Yeah, I mean, first, I would encourage Sangat members to visit our website to read the full report. Again, more than 50 policy recommendations are there, templates that you can use for your local school, a step-by-step process of if your child is bullied, what you can do to kind of document that and to address it. So if you go to thesikh.co/WAYRF. You can find the full report. So WAYRF stands for Where Are You Really From? So you can find the full report there digitally. We have a microsite where you can see all of the data kind of in an interactive format and look at some of that. So that remains really important. If you go on that website, you can actually fill out a form if you want to get involved with us for our back to school push. So you can fill out your information. Our community development team will reach out to you and work with you on what you can do at the local level, at the state level, to actually move forward with those recommendations in the fall. So want to start by encouraging folks to do that. The second call to action, something we're doing obviously this month, is we published a toolkit for community members to be able to recognize the Sikh genocide. So again, if you go to our website, we have resolution language. You can go there, adapt it to your local Sangat, and use it to secure resolutions at the local or state level to recognize 1984. Obviously, we're in the month of June, but even leading up to November, strongly encourage folks, if they are interested, to utilize that toolkit, to use that language as they see fit. And then, we're going to continue to do our bread and butter work, which is employment discrimination, hate crimes, and school bullying. And, one of the things that we are certainly very involved in right now and became very important post-COVID is workplace discrimination of Sikhs, specifically related to PPE. And really related to gas masks and other things of that sort. And so we are engaged in a campaign against the California Department of Corrections because they are discriminating against Sikhs, Muslims, Jews, African Americans, essentially forcing them to choose between maintaining their kish or their employment by telling them they need to shave in order to work as a peace officer. So our legal team has a class action lawsuit working hard on that. The Department of Justice is working to address this as well. So we're going to continue to do the work that we have been doing for 20 years, but also move into the next chapter here as an organization of what we're looking to do, which is build our capacity and ability to do this work at an even larger scale. As I mentioned, there's no shortage of problems in the community. There's no shortage of challenges that come up, but there's also no shortage of excitement. And so one of the things we're really excited about is having a number of folks on our team who are newer to this work, who are on the younger side, who are bringing a fresh new perspective to what we need to do as a community, as an organization, to address all of these challenges that we do face.
Once again, Harman Singh, Executive Director of Sikh Coalition, outlining not just the importance of this organization for the 20+ years that you have been serving the Sikh Sangat in the United States, but more importantly, the value that you're bringing to the table for the next generation and the future of the Sikh American community. Thank you so much for your work. ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਸਾਡੀ ਅਗਲੀ ਪੀੜ੍ਹੀ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਮਜ਼ਬੂਤ foundation ਦੇ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. Thank you so much. And I have to once again highlight, I know you mentioned mentioned it in the last segment, the Get Out the Vote initiative. It is an election year. Civic engagement means getting involved in the political process, and that is a two-way street, folks, so you have to get involved. sikhcoalition.org ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਪਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਫੈਲੋਸ਼ਿਪ ਬਾਰੇ, ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਂ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੋਲੰਟੀਅਰ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ, ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਪਾਣੀ ਹੈ, or more importantly, if you want to support the organization, make sure you visit sikhcoalition.org. Harman Singh, always a pleasure, and once again, congratulations. Sat Sri Akal.
Sat Sri Akal.
Ji. Harman Singh ਲਈ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਕੋਈ questions, comments, concerns, of course ਤੁਸੀਂ ਲਿਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. I have some more news and big updates for you. And once again, hearty congratulations Harman Singh ਨੂੰ, ਜੋ ਕਿ Sikh coalition ਦੀ leadership ਦੀ position ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਡਟ ਕੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਨ. We wish him the best of luck. ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਇਸ ਹਿਸਟੋਰਿਕ ਇਤਿਹਾਸਿਕ ਹੀਟ ਵੇਵ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ. ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਚੇਤਾਵਨੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਉਨ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਜੋ ਹਾਈ ਰਿਸਕ ਪੋਪੂਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਸੀਡਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ, ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਲਈ, ਛੋਟੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਲਈ, ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਇੰਡੀਵਿਜੂਅਲਸ ਲਈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਸਟਿੰਗ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨਸ ਹਨ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਹ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈਗੀ, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਹੈਗੀ, ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਪਰਸੋਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ 3-4 ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਅਗਲੇ ਹਫਤੇ ਤੱਕ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਹੀਟ ਵੇਵ ਨਾਰਥ ਈਸਟਰਨ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਅਤੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਕਰੀਨ 'ਤੇ ਨਕਸ਼ਾ ਮਾੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਵੇਖ ਵੀ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ. ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਲੌਂਗ ਡਿਊਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੀਟ ਵੇਵ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, ਐਂਡ ਹਿਸਟੋਰਿਕ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਇਨ ਏਰੀਆਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋ ਨਾਰਥ ਈਸਟਰਨ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਯੂਨਾਈਟਿਡ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨੀ ਅਰਲੀ, ਇੰਨੀ ਜਲਦੀ ਸਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਗਰਮੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਮੌਸਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ, ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ. ਸੋ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕੀ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਪ੍ਰਿਪੇਅਰ ਨਾ ਹੋਣ. ਆਫ ਕੋਰਸ ਇਹਦਾ ਇੰਪੈਕਟ ਲੋਕਲ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਇਲੈਕਟ੍ਰਿਸਿਟੀ ਗ੍ਰਿਡ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ. ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ AC ਦਬਾ ਕੇ ਇਸਤੇਮਾਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ. ਦ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕੇਅਰਫੁਲੀ ਇਨ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਵੋ, ਇਨਡੋਰਸ ਰਵੋ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ. ਆਈ ਨੋ ਕਈ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੈਰ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੂਟੀਨ ਹੈਗੀ, ਸੈਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਸ਼ੋਰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰੋ, ਬਟ ਜਾਂ ਦਿਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਅਰਲੀ, ਦਿਨ ਗਰਮ ਹੋਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੇ, ਜਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਸੂਰਜ ਢਲਣ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲੋ, ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਇਟਸ ਸਪੋਜ਼ਡ ਟੂ ਬੀ really hot and humid. This heat wave ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ, of course, if you look at some of the headlines, you can see that the cities, ਕਿੰਨੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਨੇ emergencies declare ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਹਨ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੀਟ ਇੰਡੈਕਸ ਟ੍ਰਿਪਲ ਡਿਜਿਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ. ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 80-90 ਦਾ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਚਰ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲੀ ਹੋਏ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੋਲਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉੱਥੇ 100 ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਦੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋਏਗਾ. ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਨੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਗਰਮੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ. ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਡਾ ਇੱਕ ਮਤਲਬ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ ਜੈਨੇਰਿਕ ਮੇਕਅਪ ਸੋ ਟੂ ਸਪੀਕ, ਬਟ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ USA ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ, ਸਰੀਰ ਨੂੰ ਆਤ ਇੰਨੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹਿੰਦੀ. ਸੋ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਬੀ ਕੇਅਰਫੁਲ. And just in terms of scientific reasoning, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ heat dome effect ਕਿਹਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ, like you can see in the next headline. ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ once again ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਲਦ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਇਨ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਜੁਲਾਈ ਅਗਸਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਮੌਸਮ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਇਹ ਆ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ. ਐਂਡ ਹੀਟ ਡੋਮਸ ਨੋਰਮਲੀ ਸਾਊਥ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੇਖੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ, ਸਾਊਥ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਊਥ ਵੈਸਟ ਦੀ ਜੋ ਸਟੇਟਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ. ਐਤਕੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਨਾਰਥ ਈਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਾਏ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ. ਹੀਟ ਡੋਮ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਇਜ਼ ਜਸਟ ਇੱਕ ਏਰੀਆ ਆਫ ਹਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ, ਐਟਮੋਸਫੀਅਰਿਕ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ਼ਰ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਗਰਮ ਹਵਾ ਨੂੰ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਲੈਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਨ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ. ਸੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਸੋਚੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਅਵਨ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਟੈਂਪਰੇਚਰ ਔਨ ਕਰਕੇ, ਤੇ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਗਰਮੀ ਅਵਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ. ਇਟਸ ਲਿਟਰਲੀ ਦ ਸੇਮ ਕਾਈਂਡ ਆਫ ਥਿੰਗ, ਐਕਸੈਪਟ ਅਵਨ ਦੀ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ. ਸੋ ਵਨਸ ਅਗੇਨ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਬੀ ਸੇਫ, ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸਟੇ ਕੂਲ. ਜਿੰਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਅਵੋਇਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ, ਜਾਂ ਅਗਰ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੀ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਸਟਿੰਗ ਕੰਡੀਸ਼ਨਸ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ, ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕੇਅਰਫੁਲ ਰਵੋ. ਐਂਡ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੀ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ, ਸਾਡੇ ਗੈਸਟ ਲਈ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਕੁਐਸਚਨਸ, ਕਮੈਂਟਸ, ਕੰਸਰਨ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਲਿਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ info@jusbroadcasting.com, ashmita@jusbroadcasting.com. ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਦਿਓ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ. ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ.